In this video, we're going to have a look at two different DAX functions, the EDATE and EOMONTH functions. We're going to look at what they are, what they do, and some of the nuances to bear in mind when it comes to using them. All of that and more. So without further ado, let's get started. Hi, my name is Fernan, and welcome to the Solutions Abroad YouTube channel, where we cover tips, tricks, and best practices when working with Power BI. I upload new videos every week, so make sure you hit the subscribe button and the bell icon to get notified when a new one is out. So the EDATE and EOMONTH DAX functions are functions that I find typically quite easy to use because unlike functions like previous month and its other iterations, it doesn't really need tables or columns of data. It simply just needs to be fed the dates or the scalar dates that you want. So let me give you an example. So here in my report, it's basically just an empty report with one table. We have a list of employees here with different values like their date of birth, as well as their kind of start date within the company. And if we wanted to have a look at what EDATE and EOMONTH functions and sort of what they do, it's better to use these examples because they're pretty simple. So if I create a new column here, and I'm just gonna call this EDATE, and if I start typing EDATE here, you will see that in the IntelliSense, it asks for two things, which is the same on both the EOMONTH and the EDATE. It asks for just the start date, which is a scalar date, and the month. So the number of months that you want before or after the date that you give. So in this case, let's just give it the date of birth. So employee dates like this. And let's say we want to just get 1 month, the exact date 1 month after that date. So as you can see here, what it's done, it's taken the date. So maybe let's just change the date into the same type so that you can read it easier. So as you can see, it just adjusted 1 month forward. So 1st of January is 1st of February, 28th of February, 28th of March, 15th of March, and 15th of April. So what's interesting about the EDATE is that if you are dealing with end of months that don't exactly match up, so you want to get the exact date on the next month that doesn't have that date, it will automatically adjust accordingly. So the example of that would be this 31st of October. Now there is no 31st of November, so the EDATE automatically adjusted to take the last month of that next month, so 30th of November instead. So going back to the EDATE, so as you notice, we've put the date of birth, which is the column. However, you don't really need to, because it's a scalar, you can just add your own date. So if you wanted to add your own date, we can just put a different date here. So 2023, 12/1. And using the kind of date function, and that just gives us the date 1 month after that, after December, which is January. Now let's put this, and now let's remove this because it doesn't make sense at the moment. And let's change it to the start date instead. So start employees start date like this. And at the moment, what it's doing is it's giving us 1 month after that start date. However, if you change that into 0, it's just going to give you the same date because it's exact date. If you change that into negative, it's going to do the inverse. So it's going to get you the exact date in the past. And the same nuance rules also apply. So if you are, let's say you have a date that doesn't have the same date on that month that you're trying to adjust to, it will automatically adjust those dates accordingly. So the typical ones would be, for example, if there are no 31sts on those months, but in your value there's a 31st, or during leap year. So when you have your February, which is usually 28th, but then it's 29th, this EDATE adjusts that accordingly using the end of the month as its sample. So in this case, just as an example, I'm just going to show you -3. It will just give us the start date minus 3 months from that date. So it's a pretty handy function from my perspective. So the typical way that I use this at work. And in this example specifically is, for example, if I wanted to calculate when their probation would be ending. So a typical probation in the UK would be 3 months. So we want to get the date 3 months after they have started to set that end of their probation date. So in this case, we just need to make sure that we're using the start date as our first parameter and just change that month into 3 months ahead in time. So what it will do is the 15th of June. So it will just give us those dates of when their probation dates or when their probation will be finished. Another example would be, let's say you want to figure out when their retirement would be based on their date of birth. So typically, if you want to do some retirement analysis and try to understand when you will need to recruit more people based on people with chances of retiring, you would typically want to know when those are. So let's create a new column here. We can just retirement date. And then we're just going to use EDATE once more. We're going to use the dates, which is basically their birth dates. And then in the months, we want 65, but 65 years multiplied by 12 months. So we're just going to use that calculation here. And then if you hit enter, there you go. So it just gives you those specific or those dates adjusted in. That's basically their 65th birthday. So let's move on to the next function, the EOMONTH end of month function, which does exactly what it says on the tin. It gives you the end of the month of the dates based on the number of months that you give it. So unlike the exact months, if you adjust, let's say, to forward 1 month, it will give you the end of the month of that month. So I'm going to create a new column here. Yes, I'm going to create a new column right here. I'm just going to call it EOMONTH. And then we're just going to use the start date as an example. So EOMONTH. And then the start date is the start date column. And then we're just going to give it 1. So here you go. So what it's done is it's taken the date, the start date, June. You've added +1, which is July, and it's given us the latest date within that month. So 31st of July, and exactly the same thing for the other rows. Now, if you leave and change this to 0, what it will do is it will just give you the end of the month for the current month where your start date is. So 15th of June, it will just give us the 30th of June, vice versa, vice versa. So I find this pretty useful if I want to do some quick grouping within the months, because all of them are grouped to the end of the month. And same thing with the EDATE. If you choose to add negative values here, it will look back in the past and give you those months in the past. So -3 would be the end of the month, 3 months from the start date. So pretty simple. So these functions, the EOMONTH and EDATE, are very simple but very powerful functions, and I use them quite a lot in a lot of my DAX calculations. One that springs into my mind is when I was developing the custom drop-downs for different date ranges, which I did cover in a separate video, I think. So if you want to see the EOMONTH or EDATE in action, I do use those DAX functions in that solution. So I'll leave a link somewhere in the screen here, so go check it out if you haven't yet. And that's really it for this video. I hope you now know how easy it is to start using the EDATE and EOMONTH DAX functions in Power BI. Thanks for watching. As usual, give this video a like if you found it useful. Give it a dislike if you didn't, so to do better for next time. Ask your questions in the comment section box below so I can help you and you can help others. If you like this video, we have a Patreon page where you can support the channel and get exclusive perks like early access, demo files, and credits at the end of these videos. Thanks again for watching, and see you in the next one. Bye-bye.